did because moral code, I guess? Despite these attempts at setting limits, one of the guys was very insistent and continued to flirt with me. At one point, it does get uncomfortable to have to deal with such a thing, especially when I wanted to get the most out of my internship, and having this guy all over my business wasn't ideal. The internship was around 10 weeks in total, so like 2 months and a little more. After I was done with that, I proceeded to live my life normally again. Going back to college and not having a job was a big pain, but it is what it is. Fast forward to the next summer, I was once again looking for an internship. I was a decently good student with a 3.9 GPA, so getting job offers at that point for a CS student isn't the hardest thing in the world. What did surprise me a little bit is that I actually got an offer from the same place I'd done my previous internship at. They even offered considerably better pay, and it was an extended 16-week contract. I knew about the company, and I obviously held a soft spot for it in my heart, so I ended up choosing it without giving the idea a second thought. There were some familiar faces when I came back, which was nice to see. However, what did surprise me a lot was the guy I mentioned earlier was also there. At first, I didn't know how to feel about it. It's not like he ever caused any major inconveniences for me. He just didn't make me feel very comfortable. But hey, a whole year gone by, so maybe he moved on. Maybe he had a girlfriend now or something. I remember him coming up to me on the first day and immediately starting a conversation. I was very nervous about how he would act. We'll call him Parker from now on. He actually apologized for his behavior during the previous summer, which was a big sigh of relief for me, as that on its own shows a sense of maturity and self-awareness of his actions. This allowed me to not view Parker as a creep, but just as someone who had a crush on me or something, and had understandably moved on from it. No offense taken, no bad blood, we shall move on. We talked for a bit that day, as we never really got the chance to know each other. He had actually graduated already, and apparently was actually working for the company now, not just as an intern. 2 of my friends were also doing the internship here, so it was great to have people you know around. We would hang out during breaks and after work most of the time. And as time passed, I actually started to get along with Parker rather well, so he slowly started showing up in said plans along with my other friends. My friends found the whole last summer situation with Parker, and then finding him again in the same company pretty funny, but they didn't have any problems with him being around. I remember one day as I was talking with him that he casually mentioned something about his girlfriend. I knew it. Not like I was jealous or anything, but it's not like he treats someone the way he did for a whole summer and then just act like it was nothing out of nowhere. I obviously asked more questions about Parker's girlfriend, as it was the first time the topic had even come up after like a whole month of already working together. He didn't go into too much detail, which is fine, although I do love me some gossip, so that was disappointing. I would always tell him to take his girlfriend to one of our plans. After all, it doesn't bother me to have some more girls around. Spending so much time with just guys can get into your head pretty easily, or maybe that's just me, but that's besides the point. To this, he would always say that she was more of an introvert, and the stuff we usually did, partying, clubs, drinks after work, etc., was not her kind of deal. He always mentioned that I reminded him of her though, which was odd, especially considering our background. Time flew by, and once again, my time at the company had come to an end. I enjoyed this experience a lot more, as I'd already had an idea of what I was doing there, plus the work environment felt a lot more comfortable. And, well, I made a pretty good friend in Parker, which was a massive improvement from last time. We had each other's socials and everything, so after all, we managed to keep in touch as I moved back on to college. I graduated a year later and was finally set free from boring old college. I'd garnered enough work experience to land a job at a pretty big tech company with its headquarters in New York City. I'd lived my entire life on the West Coast, so moving to the East was kind of nerve-wracking. I got a whole bunch of sign-in bonuses though, and my initial wage was very good, so I managed to live a pretty comfortable life. After a long time being single, I finally met someone I connected with deeply and had a pretty good relationship with said person. This was all happening around 2015 to 2016, so keep in mind, Instagram was already a pretty big thing. I obviously bragged my boyfriend around on social media. Now, you might be a little confused as to why I'm bringing this up. Like I said earlier, me and Parker had each other's socials. We followed each other. We would have short conversations from now and then, casual small talk with someone you were once acquaintances with. As I started to brag my boyfriend around more regularly, Parker started to become more and more present in my DMs. Odd. Time went by, and this trend continued. And it now makes me sound paranoid or something, but you have to understand Parker was really something back in his flirty days. I don't want to go into too much detail, but he never really took no's for an answer. I respect the effort and all, but there's a big difference between, oh yeah, I like this girl, and although she doesn't seem interested in me at the moment, I'll try and show her what I can offer with my great personality and overall likability, and see if that changes her mind. And how do you not like me? Please like me. I'm being so nice to you. Why don't you see that I'm being nice to you? You should be attracted to me just as I am to you, and my actions should have changed your mind by now. You might think I'm overreacting, but Parker seriously creeped me out at times. He followed me around a lot, was casually just in the right place at the right time to be able to spend time with me, would be waiting outside the building as I came into work, even though he had a different schedule than I did, and constantly stopped me from doing my work just so I could give him some attention. Once again, you might think I'm crazy, but there's no way that was all just a coincidence. I saw a pretty clear trend, and although I stated my intentions and had said no to multiple date invitations, he kept insisting. Some people really just don't know what no means. I was with said boyfriend for around 4 years. At one point in the relationship, I even decided to block Parker, as he once again seemed like he was coming back to his weirdo stage, and I was way too happy to even be bothered by his behavior. I was glad that thanks to the distance between us, with a simple click of a button, I would no longer have to worry about him and what his opinion on my relationship was. Or so I thought. But yeah, it was a mutual breakup in 2019. We were both very busy with work. He was starting a business at the time, and didn't give each other the time or attention we believed we deserved. It was fine. I wasn't too stressed about it, as it definitely wasn't a messy breakup. I proceeded to delete all the pictures I had of him on my Instagram feed, although we remained friends. This was a really weird stage in my life. I didn't feel great about my job anymore, and the New York City life eventually got pretty annoying compared to what it was like in Cali. The weather was cold, the traffic was the worst most of the time, and I just felt stuck in general. I was ready for a change in my lifestyle, so I did what any responsible adult would do. I quit my job and proceeded to go on a well-deserved vacation through Europe. You should have seen my face as I received an email from the same company I worked at in my college days. My jaw dropped, and as intimidating as the whole idea of going back was, it would have been childish for me to not give it some thought at least. They were offering move-in bonuses, a slightly better salary, and plus, it just made so much sense for me to go back. But I got a bad vibe from it, probably just a gut feeling. I asked some friends what they thought, and they obviously said yes. I wanted some change, and right there was my ticket to it. Don't get me wrong, New York was great. $1 pizza, the subway, people being overly rude, but honest compared to the yes men in Cali. Ignoring my intuition, I accepted the offer and started the moving process immediately. Being single after such a long time was starting to take a toll on me. You get so used to having someone to talk to about these sorts of decisions. I pretended like it was nothing, but I knew deep inside I felt rather lonely. I settled in Mountain View after a long, chaotic moving process. Probably one of the biggest pains in the butt I've ever had to deal with. Moving from one side of the country to the other is no joke. I had a meeting with the local HR rep from the company. They'd actually grown a decent bit in the last 5 years since I left. They expanded to multiple cities, including Seattle and Austin. It felt good to know that I was there during their early stage. We just met up at a nearby coffee shop to discuss the terms for my contract and what the job was going to be like and blah blah blah. I got the position of a junior full-stack developer, which was a pretty big deal. I assumed they trusted me with such a job because of the knowledge I already had of the company, and they were probably satisfied with what I did for them as an intern, plus 5 years of experience at another company, is definitely a valuable point for employers. However, I was still a little surprised about the fact that I got such a position, considering these are usually given to people with many more years of experience. And not to demerit myself, but I'm not the type of software engineer who's constantly working on side projects and growing their portfolio by the day. I'm good at what I do, and that's about it. To this day, I still remember the exact moment when I went to my first day at work here. I parked my car across the street in the company's employee parking lot, and as I was walking across the road, my eyes immediately targeted what seemed to be a familiar face. It can't be. No way it's him, I thought to myself. Can you try and guess who was standing right outside the entrance of the building? None other than Parker himself. Holy, this guy really still works here? Like I said earlier, I had him blocked on social media after all that happened during my relationship with my previous boyfriend. I didn't go into detail on what Parker was DMing me, but basically it seemed as though he didn't think my boyfriend was treating me right or something. Whenever we had our casual small talk, he would always ask me about him, the things he did, how he treated me, what our day-to-day life was like. I remember the exact message he once sent. I would have never done such a thing to you, haha. Yeah, was this what my gut feeling was all about? The bad vibe I was getting from this job offer? I walked up to the entrance, and he obviously also recognized me. It seemed as though he was very excited to see me, and I would have been very excited to see him as well if it wasn't for our awkward social media back and forths a few years ago. He actually continued to work for the same company after all these years, which doesn't seem